Hey guys, Nikolai here from Nash. Today's video is going to be an installation guide on the Monorim V2 suspension upgrade for the Xiaomi M365 and M365 Pro. And the reason for making this video is because I've seen a lot of comments on YouTube and had a lot of personal inquiries that the current video from the manufacturer is just too difficult to follow. It's going too fast, it's complicated. So I thought I'd try to take a different approach and just kind of slow everything down and do it in a different pace. And hopefully what we're going to do here today is going to help you get started with your V2. So yeah, just stick with me and we'll get right to it. This is the content of the suspension kit. You have the V2 suspension here with the different washers pre-installed right there. You're going to have a small plastic bag with a couple of screws and some extra washers. And then you're going to have a larger bag with 4 Allen keys and 1 wrench. You will have another spring right here. One of the springs, the yellow one, is going to be pre-installed inside the kit already, which takes a max load of up to 160 pounds. This one handles 220 pounds. So that's just a matter of preference, and I will show you how to install each one of those. And then lastly, you're going to have this long metal bar here, which is what goes through the suspension and fastens it to your scooter. And with this, you can see there is a couple of metal braces there and a screw at the end just to fasten everything up. And lastly, there's a couple of cards in the package. Now this one has different QR codes for the Monorim Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. This is for the installation video from the manufacturer. And lastly, you have this card right here, which is a very brief installation guide. And that's what we're expanding on here today. So I'll just start by showing you how to replace the spring that's inside of here in case you want to use the blue one instead. And you quite simply just unscrew this cap right here. That comes off all the way. And then you need to pull here in order to take that whole part off, just like that. And just put that aside for now. And you'll see in here is the yellow spring. So you just take that out. And you'll see also in here will be a small metal washer. Now you just leave that at the bottom there. That needs to be at the bottom of the housing. And now I want to use this blue spring instead. And before I go ahead and put it in, I will just use a tiny bit of any sort of universal lubricant. It's not required at all, but it just runs a lot smoother if everything is lubed up in there. So just get a little bit of that on the spring. There's no need to really use a lot, just a tiny bit. It'll move around in there once you start riding. So just get a little bit, and then you just place the spring back inside here. And you seal it off the same way that we opened it. Just by adding this first onto the pole, this black part here, and then just letting that slide down and then fastening the cap there again. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So you'll be able to change back and forth between whatever your preference is now. And there we go. Now the next step of the installation is to remove these reflex stickers here on both the left and the right side. And I find the easiest way to do this is to use just a sharp knife. And just carefully, without damaging any of the plastic, just wedge it off there at the top. And then use your fingers to peel off the rest. Because that exposes these 2 screws that we need to loosen in order to access the bolts in here and remove the wheel. Go around to the other side and just do exactly the same thing here. And so now when the stickers are removed on both sides, we need to remove these plastic guards. And we're going to do that by removing these 4 screws on the right side and 2 screws here. Now we're going to remove these two bolts here that hold the wheel in place. Rather, you don't need to remove them, but you need to loosen them quite a lot in order for the wheel to be able to drop out. And it's going to be a very tight, it's going to be hard to unscrew those because they're put on so firmly for safety reasons, obviously. So just unscrew those best you can, and go ahead here on the other side and just do the same thing here. And once those are off, you're going to be able to take out the wheel. As you see here, it's starting to let go already. And just loosen them until the wheel drops out. Just like that. And it's very important that you don't start disconnecting any wires. Just leave it exactly as it is. And I'll just put it right up here on top of the scooter for now. And what we'll do is we now need to remove the center screw up here. So I'll just take you guys here. And the way we do that, quite simply, is we need to unlatch here this locking mechanism. Here behind, you need to pull down that lever, as you know. And what that does is it exposes the center screw up here. So now we've gone ahead and folded down the steering rod here, and that exposes the center screw, and you need to loosen that one and these two screws here on the side. So just go ahead and do that. The center screw here at the top, you need to take that one out completely. So just get that out all the way here. Loosen that. And you need to just take that aside for now. And on it will be a small metal washer. Make sure that stays on for now. And then you need to take out that plastic cup that's in there that the screw was sitting inside. And just for order's sake, just keep all of those together. And then we need to loosen these screws here that are horizontal on the side. And we do that because we want to remove the whole steering rod from the base of the scooter. And again, you don't need to take them out at all. You just need to loosen them an appropriate amount. Just like that. And that will enable you to pull off this part here. And just leave that here on the scooter, because that just makes everything a lot easier to assemble later on. Now we will have this small screw here. We need to remove that in order to lift off the rings that we have here. So go ahead and use the smallest Allen key that we have in the kit just to remove that. It's a very short screw, so it's easy, fortunately. So just get that out. And once that's removed, we will have access to lift off these rings. Now it's super important that you memorize the order of these rings when you do the installation. So the first we remove is this big plastic ring here. The second one is a metal ring with this shape. And then just keep on laying those in the right order so that you remember the order that you took them off in. And so now you will actually be able to slide out the front fork here. So just do that. Take that out all the way. And just put that aside for now. Put that right here. Taking off the one washer we have on here. Make sure this side is facing up. And bringing you guys a little closer here, we need to remove these rings as well. Now make sure that you remember the order that these were in. So it's gonna be the slim black ring on top, the thicker one underneath, and the middle bearing ring here at the bottom. So just save those as well. And just as a point of reference, I'm gonna lay them out for you here as well. Now, as you recall, these other rings we have taken off, with this one being the bottom one, and then layering them on top of each other. Now that we have removed all the rings up at the top here, we need to go back to the V2 suspension, and you just need to loosen the cap on top of the red housing here, get that off all the way, and then pull on the black part here, and just take off the entire top as we did before when we changed the spring inside. And pay close attention to the rings here. There are two ball bearing rings at the bottom, this black ring and then the silver ring, and they're all facing this way with the slim side down. So just take off all the rings except the lowest ball bearing ring, take off the other three, and just lay those aside for now. And then you want to run this through the bottom with the ball bearing ring facing up. And don't put it up all the way, just leave it like that. And then you put on these rings again in the same direction, the ball bearing ring first and then followed by the black ring. And you can either use this silver ring, but I would prefer to save it as a spare part and then just use the stock ring because they have the same shape. So just run that through and add that slim stock ring there at the top. And now to hold everything in place, you want to use this ring here as we did before. Note it has these two markers here that need to go inside these columns, so it can only turn one way. So just put it on like that. Just like that. And it's going to be a little hard just to get down over the edge, but you just need to push it a bit. And so now we have added this ring here as well on top of that, and that holds all the other washers in place. And lastly, you add this plastic ring right here as we had before as well. And you'll see these two small plastic bits will fall into the holes of this one and hold everything in place very nicely. Just run that on top. And you'll see it just has a tiny gap, but not to worry, that will all be put together when we put in the center screw right here. So now it's time to add the top of the V2 suspension again, right here. So just place that on, start screwing it slowly, and then put on the black bit up here and just fasten it all the way. Make sure that it closes all the way here as well. And just like that. And so now what we need to do is to insert this long metal bolt right through the V2 to fasten it to the scooter itself. And this part is the long bolt, and with these two metal braces and this screw here at the end that comes off. So a total of 4 parts. And the way you do it is you run it through this part here, just enough to add this metal brace, and then you run it down, and you have to put it through this hole here in the V2 suspension. So you'll see it come through here all the way. And then you just add this other metal brace here. And it needs to stick out just enough in order for this part to come up on top. And then you just push it through and you fasten it here at the other end. And you do that with the provided Allen key. And this will just fix it together. And you actually need to put an Allen key in either side. And then just tighten it until it's in all the way there. So it doesn't matter which end that you tighten it. As long as they're brought together, you can see this part here is coming in closer. And just until it's assembled all the way here. Just like that. Has to be nice and tight for a good fit. And then what we'll do is we add this center part again on top here. So just lift that up, and then you make sure that it's opened like this. And we'll align everything later, but for now just put it on here like that. And then we need to look down here at the top, where I will be inserting this screw that we took off before from the scooter. So you just start by adding this plastic bit in here. And then you put this screw with this metal washer down through that. And it has to basically attach to the hole that we have down here. And you'll feel it fasten right away. So then just use the Allen key provided in the set again to fasten that all the way. And now don't worry about the alignment for now. We'll get that done at the end. So just fasten that till it's in all the way. And at this point, just use the long end for better momentum. There we go. And then we want to add the wheel down here. And just before we do that, we need to reuse the mudguard from the old fork. So you have to remove this screw down here at the bottom with your Allen key. And it's going to be a little difficult to reach, but just need to, like that. And we should almost be able to use the short end here. There we go. Just loosen that screw all the way. You'll hear it coming off. Just like that. And the rest you can just do by hand, so that's a lot easier. There we go. And that's the mudguard off. And now, just put aside the old fork, we won't need that. Then you need to look inside this small bag that was included with the kit, because we need to use two things from here. We need to use this silicone ring. See, there's two of those. We just need one of those. And then we also need one of the short screws provided here. And the reason why is because this screw here, the old one from the mudguard, is going to be too long to go inside the bottom here. So just get that out. And fix the silicone ring. You can put one directly on the screw and put one here above the mudguard, and then just run that through. And what that'll do is it'll dampen all the vibrations, so it won't be rattling as you're riding along. And again, use your Allen key in the set, and then you need to look up here from the bottom. You can see that there's a hole down here, a small hole that this screw must go inside. So just take that up here, the mudguard, and try to gain access there. There we go. Just like that. And note that the mudguard is facing this way, with the long end down here as the back side and the short end at the front. And now use the Allen key just to fasten that until it's nice and tight. And you want to make sure it's put in all the way, because you don't want these vibrations making noise as you're riding over bumps. And so now we need to add the front wheel back on again. Make sure that this is on the right side. And remember, we didn't take off the nuts all the way, we just loosened them. So just make sure that you run those up and have a look at the screws. They're going to be flat on the side, so you need to make sure that the flat part is what you're inserting here. Otherwise it's going to be quite difficult to get those in. And just start by fastening by hand, just so it's fixed in place. And then use your wrench, your size 18, the bigger side, and fasten them all the way, just like that. And what's recommended here when you're assembling is just to use a little bit of thread lock on the screws themselves before you fasten those nuts. And it's not required, but it'll just make everything sit a lot better. So just to use a little bit. And just make sure they're nice and tight here. And there we go. And what we do now is we just lift up this steering bar right here, and you can just close the lever here on the back, close everything off. And then you want to finish off by making sure that everything, all the other bolts here are nice and fixed for a good assembly. So you want to just start with these bolts on the side here, these horizontal bolts, and fasten those in as good as you can. And it's a fine balance between too much and too little, because if they're not tight enough, what's going to happen is you're going to lose your alignment when you turn the steering bar. It's not going to turn as well with the wheel, but if you tighten them too much, it's going to be hard to turn. So you just have to find that sweet spot. And the only way to do that is just by tightening it the right amount first, taking it for a ride, and then determining if you need to go up or down. And just tighten it all the way here. There we go. And there's actually also a small screw over here on the back that also needs to be tightened. It's just a good idea to make sure that everything is in place here. So go ahead and do that. There we go. Just make sure it's nice and tight. And so now what we need to do is to add these two plastic trims to the sides here. And the one with 4 screws, as we covered before, is for the right side here of the fork. And what you need to do is to put the bolt in here, and this cable needs to run through all the way and up the top here. So you just start from the bottom, add that, run the cable inside, and then click that on. Just try to do that. There we go. And then we need to fasten the 4 screws to hold that in place. Just start by putting those in. There we go. And then you'll want to use the smallest Allen key that was provided in the set, just to fasten those. and just add the last plastic trim here on the left side. And as you can see, that is only 2 screws, not 4. So just fasten that at the top and at the bottom here. Just like that. And use the long side to make it a lot easier.
You are with someone you are with babe with babe
And that's it. We have the suspension upgrade fully installed.